Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Spideydude Experience. I'm Zach Joyner, your friendly neighborhood webmaster and host of the program. Before we get started here on the program, we got to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/Spideydude Network. Sensational tier patrons like Adam, Allison, Cindy, Ed, Georgia, Greg, Janelle, Jessica, Jurgen, Catherine, Kale, Keegor, Laura Howard, Lump Moose, Master Drammon, Phoenician, Scott, Vanessa, and Vicky. These sensational tier patrons are our $5 and up patrons. Thank you to them and for their support. And then we have, of course, our friendly neighborhoods here that you see on the screen. We'll add those in the audio editions. And then, of course, the VIPs, Scott, Sebastian, Venkman, Winnipeg Webhead, and also our newest patron, subscriber, Sarah. Thank you guys for your support over on patreon.com/Spideydude Network. It helps us and supports all the great shows that we have here on the channel, like our Vault series, Clone Saga Chronicles, the show all about the Spider-Man Clone Saga and the Clone Saga related characters. Spectacular Radio, the show all about the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series. Amazing Spider-Man Classic. Season 1 was 3 guys talking about Spidey from the beginning. But Season 2 is Javi and Jack Trujillo, father and son duo, doing it themselves. Then we have the Sal Buscema Era podcast with some new Spidey music podcasts that are going to be coming and dropping very soon. Voices from the Eyrie, our Gargoyles Podcast, is our Gargoyles show that's about the animated series that ran in the 1990s. And, of course, you're watching the Spideydude Experience. And we also have our Slot Symposium episode. The newest episode will be dropping a week after this live stream. And, of course, Books of X is our Patreon first show. New episode dropping very soon. Now, of course, the Slot Symposium's already ready to go, but we are very, very pleased by that. But if you like all of this type of stuff, be sure to support us over on Patreon. Also, the disclaimer I give every single episode. Pay it no mind. We're going to make some references to visual aids and or live news stories or live comments. Play that no mind if you're listening to the audio edition of this program. And if you do, give us a 5-star review. Leave us that 5-star review. We'll read that on a future episode. And if you haven't already, give us a like, a share, and subscribe. Of course, I have the Halo 3 rat himself, Mr. Neil Bogenrider. Hello, Neil.
Hi. It's good to be back.
And as always, we have the enchilada legs man himself.
Yep.
Adam.
Hi.
And tonight, a very special person. A person that's been a part of some of the programs that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Mr. Donovan Morgan Grant. Hello, Don.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, buddy. We really do appreciate it. So we're going to talk some NYCC. This is it happened this past weekend, and a certain somebody was there. So we'll talk about some experiences there. And oh, hello, we got some people already in the comments. Hi, Megan. We got Andrew. Hello, Andrew. We got Vinkman. We've got Matt Bird. We've got I'm saying hi to Vinkman. And Donovan, of course.
Hello.
Neil, if you're being forced to review these books, blink twice, Vinkman says. Yes, he is being forced. Vinkman says hi to Donovan as well. So
It doesn't need to be forced.
It's not, look.
It's not coercion. It's more just like, fine, if no one else is going to do it, I might as well.
Well, we were going to have Paul on. Paul is doing the comic binge because I guess hockey supersedes the comic binge.
I don't think you'll have any shortage of people who have thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man right now.
You'd be surprised, man.
So, okay.
We're going to scrunch up our bench. It's like, okay, who's going to review this week? Please, somebody.
Well, Javi had to work. Josh had to work. Paul had stuff going on.
What?
Someone had to feed their cat. Someone had to wash their hair.
I mean, it could be worse. I know some people don't think it could be worse, but trust me, I feel like it could be worse. And also, I got to give a shout out, and I'm working on the review right now. I shot the review this afternoon. Got to give a shout out to my buddy Greg for the new Mafex Scarlet Spider. Really enjoying that thing. So, thank you, sir. He had to Andrew says he had to wash his hands. So, okay, let's talk about NYCC first. That way, if Don wants to, go leave after, you certainly can. If you don't want to talk about Amazing, I'm not going to force you. So, let's. You're doing stuff for the Popverse, right? That's my understanding.
That was the intention. Well, I mean, I'm a general freelancer now. I've been with DC longer. I've done stuff with Popverse in the past. So, like these conventions are now more of a freelance financial incentive. So I go there and I take what I can get.
Gotcha. So you've been doing stuff for DC. I know you and Josh have kind of done stuff together with that, and tell people a little bit about that, and kind of give them an update on as to if they haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, like it's funny because we started going to Comic-Con, like the first time we went to Comic-Con, or I went to Comic-Con, was when you went to Comic-Con,
right?
In 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh and Stella from BTO and I just kept going for several years. And the initial sort of in addition to having fun, the initial sort of mission was to kind of report stuff for the BatmanUniverse.net.
Mm-hmm.
And this is back when the New 52 started. So this is this is well over 10 years ago. This is a long time ago. And
dude, we sneezed and it was 10 years passed, it feels like.
Yeah, it's a little sickening. If you're looking at that old picture, just seeing how young everybody was.
Oh, dude, we're gonna probably do the season 12 cast photo this weekend at Gerard's wedding. So
it's gonna be like the final season intro to Happy Days. Like who are all these characters?
Well, I'm thinking the '90s show reunion.
Oh boy,
yeah,
that '90s show.
But yeah, I mean, I still currently review Nightwing, but I think most of us have kind of generally phased out of TBU, just different interests, but also over time when you go to conventions and stuff and you are conducting interviews, we always did that. We always actually we're doing work, talking to creatives, talking to actors and such. Mm-hmm. And networking is kind of inevitable. And like 2019, right before COVID, I had met up with an editor from the DC's newly launched website. You remember back when DC had the streaming shows, like Harley Quinn and the Titans aired on that website.
It was DC
Universe, DC Universe, right?
Yeah. So I got in cahoots with them, and I've been working for them ever since on a freelance basis. And that led me to some other stuff that similar, basically at most places where Josh is, I tend to go because it's easy in roads. But I've done promotional content, representative work for Warner Brothers. Much of that was done during 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this year I've done some work for Popverse. I did some work for them for C2E2. I did some work for them for San Diego. Most of it was from San Diego, specifically the story I wrote a piece on. With the actors and writers strike, Hollywood had an absence in San Diego Comic-Con, and that resulted in a lot more people hanging around Artist Alley and a lot more business for comic retailers.
Yeah.
How was it Comic-Con being for comic books again?
If you ask the creators, it'd be good. It was a. There were people wondering, oh, will people even attend? I mean, but you can't really. You've already spent money on
it. You can't refund. You'd be a fool.
You've bought the tickets.
Yeah,
might as well go.
I should link the piece, but it was nothing but positive for the actual comics people. There wasn't some sort of cynical. Well, if I can't wait in Hall H all day, I'll go home. It was people just kind of went downstairs and went to Artist Alley, and it was really great for them. And I was talking to the artist Jamal Eigel, who I've come to know quite well in the last couple of years. We're actually semi-regulars on Comic Timing, which is a perennial comic book podcast. But I was talking to him and co-host Ian Levinstein in Artist Alley on Sunday about the same thing, about business and such. And they're like, yeah. And apparently, like the New York City Comic Con, Josh was telling me this the other day, has overtaken San Diego Comic Con in terms of population. San Diego Comic Con, I think, was up to 130, 150,000. New York City Comic Con is 260,000.
Holy crap! In a much smaller venue, because the Javits Center is not that big, according to
Gerard. The Javits Center is really big. You know what the thing about it is that San Diego, I think, has more stuff in its space.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things that I always expect to see at the SCCC con floor that New York City doesn't have. But New York City, I think, just has a bigger condensed amount of people in it.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely big, especially like it's just like 5 floors up.
Yeah.
Like it's tall. It's taller than the San Diego place. But like I would have presumed, especially when I returned to San Diego this year, that San Diego is still bigger because it just has a lot more stuff. It has a DC booth. It has a lot more booths. And DC has a noted, DC, I think, Image, Boom Studio, they have abscesses at NYCC. There's a big Marvel booth, but like, they don't really have a presence. Honestly, like NYCC, there's Marvel, of course. I feel it has a larger anime presence that's noticeable compared to SECC. Of course, anime is not a minority in these cons, but you have like giant, like, foam figures of Goku and Luffy and other characters to be seen. Whereas at San Diego does feel, in my opinion, a bit more like comics. Like comics have made their mark for a longer period of time. I know, of course, San Diego's been around forever, but like I don't really see like giant anime figures inside the con. There's some places outside of it, but like whereas New York City Comic Con feels a little bit more. There's some stuff. There's a lot of stuff with video games and everything like that, which San Diego just has too. I mean, it's not even a competition. It's just sort of like the description of like how these things kind of hit you.
It's like baseball teams, right? You got the Yankees in New York and you got the Dodgers in LA, right? That's kind of just that's how it works.
You got the Padres in San Diego, and we don't talk about them.
Yeah. Well,
and
I had an affinity for the Padres because they were the AA team for my hometown. So when they brought minor league baseball back to my old stomping grounds of Amarillo, and the Padres were they were in the Padres system. I think they're now in the Diamondback system, which is cool because the Diamondbacks are in the NLCS right now.
Real quick, I know that obviously all the major studios didn't have as big of a presence at San Diego as they usually would because of the strike. Am I correct in assuming that like Sony used that to their advantage to like push Spider-Man 2 harder than they would have had Marvel Studios or Warner Brothers shown up?
That's a really good question, and I'll tell you this because it really leads up to a really good example of that because at San Diego there are hardly any actors at all. Like we were at a Warner Brothers animation panel where they were previewing like Fiona and Cake and Hair Love and the latest season of Harley Quinn. They had no actors, no writers. They had to get like storyboard artists and directors up, and it was very obvious that these poor people weren't used to talking to a crowd, public speaking. They're just workers, and that was a real big difference than your usual people's like Andrea Romano or Bruce Timm come up. They've done this before, so they kind of know what to say to a crowd. Whereas I actually kind of ducked out of that early to go into Hall H for the Spider-Man 2 PlayStation 5 panel, and Yuri Lowenthal and Laura Bailey and the actor who plays Miles, I forget his name at the moment, but they were there with the game directors, and they made a point to say that just because we're here doesn't mean we don't support the strike. It's kind of a different thing.
Yeah,
but that was a very specific and rare instance of actors actually being there to promote what they were doing.
Yeah, because SAG has different rules for video game promotion than film promotion, if I'm correct. And I know that they were planning on striking over video game development, or is that not passing anymore?
I don't know, honestly. I don't know.
Okay.
Sure.
So I haven't heard a lot of updates on that. I think as it's gotten closer, I think the SAG right now is focusing on trying to get their deal done with the actors, and then we'll see what happens. And if I got a feeling that if it's a favorable enough deal on the film side, then that will be probably the lead to some of like the bare bones of the negotiation on the video game side. So the fact that we've got the writers back, I think, is a significant deal. Was there any rumblings, by the way, Don, about the whole Daredevil thing in NYCC? Because that was...
honestly, like I was like sitting in the airport waiting to board when I saw that news, and I missed out the fact that Charlie Cox went incognito at NYCC.
I just saw that.
He dresses like Bandit from Bluey, right?
I had no idea.
Didn't he do it with San Diego too?
I mean, some of these actors kind of do it randomly. I don't think he was at San Diego, but like
I don't think he was there.
I know Daniel Radcliffe
actually messaged me about that, and I was like, I had no idea.
I think Daniel Radcliffe dressed as Spider-Man one.
Yeah, that was years ago. That was probably like 10 years ago.
Radcliffe did. A number of people did. I think Henry Cavill did once.
Yeah, Henry Cavill.
Okay, so I did find it. Charlie Cox did indeed go as Bluey from the cartoon.
Yes. I did see that, which my daughter would have freaking loved. She loves that damn show.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
Like it jumped right off the screen.
I love that, like Daredevil plus blue. That's awesome.
Also, just wearing. I'm not familiar with the lore of Bluey.
No, I'm not.
Is the Emirates part?
There is a
major
soccer episode. I'm pretty sure there's a soccer episode. I could ask Gabby, but she's probably in bed right now. So
just call your daughter. Hey,
call my ex-wife to put my daughter on the phone about Bluey.
Hi, honey. We just need to know a question about Bluey. Does Bluey's dad support the Emirates?
Is there a moment where Bluey goes up to the opposite soccer team and is like, "We beat you! I beat you!" I was actually thinking about that earlier today.
Where's a Daredevil mask?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Daredevil, the production has obviously been halted because of the strikes, but the showrunners were dismissed because it was too much like a legal procedural, and it I guess did not do and test well.
It's funny because I thought people wanted more of that.
Okay, here's the thing about Marvel fans is that they're very fickle creatures. And they will.
This is Kevin Feige. He pulled the plug.
Yeah.
No, but it's like a.
Allegedly, he was the one that also pushed for the Super Skrull fight in Secret Invasion. So
he's done a lot of things.
Well, what I found interesting, and I don't remember who covered this, was that Marvel apparently doesn't actually have showrunners. They just have like a committee. Like
they said that. In the whole article, the Hollywood Reporter article basically said that like,
it was Hollywood Reporter.
They do the they said like, there's no showrunners. We basically let
the committee.
It sounded like, well, the way the article put it, it almost sounded like it was fairly creatively free, I guess, within guidelines. Like they let them do almost not whatever they want, but a lot of stuff, and then they make a story out of it in post, is what it sounded like the article was saying. My
understanding is that there's like a meta arc, the meta arc that Feige would like to do. I think there's certain spots they want to hit in this. Well, maybe because honestly, the multiverse saga has been very inconsistent, to say the least.
Real quick, since we got people talking about it, yes, we are talking about ASM. We're actually going to probably use the Spider-Man panel as a transition into the ASM discussion.
That I can talk about.
You went viral, and Crawlspace apparently just doesn't recognize you anymore because they kept citing your tweets over and over again in the Discord server.
Oh, really?
I said, oh, hey, that's my guy Don, and then everyone was like, who?
Well, no one said who.
No one said who, but they just like completely overshot the fact that Don from the Crawl Space,
like John Hansu in Guardians of the Galaxy. Who?
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah.
Only a guy was on.
No one went like who, but it was more just like I recognized you were the guy who tweeted that. I'm like, oh hey, it's Don, and then they just kind of passed over. Like, okay, anyways, let's keep talking about this panel.
Like
my name is not my name on Twitter currently. I should change that.
I mean, it was only a guy that's been on Check's Notes, like 93 episodes of your 800 episode show. So
since we're on the panel discussion, let's talk about Spider-Man and that specific panel.
Yes.
What's the politically correct way of saying it didn't go well?
Well, I mean, like it would be indulgent to presume that like the entire thing was like just like 60 minutes of straight embarrassment for the creative team, but that's not the case. Generally speaking, because it was honest. I'll say this: it was a damn sight better than the panel they had at C2E2. That one I came away thinking like that stunk because it was the C2E2 one was 10 minutes of Spider-Man and like 45 minutes of like the Venom and Carnage books, with the going back in time, all kind of stuff. And to me, it signaled that like because they kind of previewed 26, but they didn't talk about it. That they really didn't have much to talk about with Spider-Man. But with NYCC, it was all Spider-Man and gang war. Right. And the books that weren't Spider-Man were tying into gang war. They were relevant. It wasn't like that one random panel where they were talking about like a Groot miniseries. It was like, okay, this is a Shang-Chi book that's tying into gang war. She-Hulk. There's a new Spider-Woman title coming to gang war. And they showed a lot of artwork of Peter, Miles, Daredevil, who's Elektra, Mayor Luke Cage, and She-Hulk fighting guys. They showed a lot of the villains, which are all the gangsters, like White Rabbit, Hammerhead, Black Mariah, and
the guys we kind of seen in the background since the run started, but now they're getting put into the front.
Yeah, and you had you had Zeb Wells, you had Nick Lowe was moderating, you had.
Zeb Wells showed up at cons? I thought we were, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Oh no. He's
going to be told to stay away from.
I mean, he was at San Diego too. I saw him walking in the middle of the street.
Yeah, I saw his empty chair at San Diego. I guess I just missed him. But C2E2 in NYCC, Josh and I talked to him, like on off the cuff. But so here's the thing. So here's all right, let me cut to the chase. Generally speaking, when people were talking about gang war and this is what's going to happen, I mean, like it wasn't, like we're previewing the Marvel Spider-Man 2 Insomniac game levels of excitement, but people were generally positive. I mean, there were Spider-Man fans there. It was a full room of all different kinds of people, various cosplays. People we're not the only ones who love Spider-Man. He's a global fan-loved character.
Of course.
So it was fun seeing. Okay, it's a new story, gang wars, and Peter's leading these people. It's not just he's derping around. Like he's leading these guys to fight the gangsters, but there were definitely moments where the fandom didn't bitch out and let them know how they felt about certain things.
Here, real quick, I want to actually probe on that. How did they react to Jackpot or the announcement of the one shot?
Well, that's the thing because Nick Lowe was moderating, and I like Nick Lowe. I mean, there are times where
he's harmless.
He's kind of being the Stanley showman, but I don't dislike him. And he had such high energy, he clearly downed a monster before things. He kind of was jumping up and down. He did a bit about I'm wearing Spider-Man shirt underneath my business suit or whatever. So he was really rolling through it. He really wouldn't allow awkward pauses to happen. But he kind of got the audience energized for the comic. But when he got to Mary Jane Jackpot and he was describing her new jackpot powers and the things that she'll be able to do in this one shot, there was really no call and receive for the audience. The audience kind of just no sold that. And as he was continuing to finish the spiel, you could feel it. I could feel it. I turned to Josh and I was like, "Did you feel that?" Is this as awkward as "Please Clap" or is this, no? It's not that. But
Bush level of awkward. Okay.
He was smart enough to know that fans feel some type of way about Mary Jane. So he just kind of rolled on. It was for most of the books, Spider-Man, Miles, Luke Cage, it was he would finish the spiel, be like, yeah. With Mary Jane, he finished it, and it was almost there was a brief realization of the shit he was saying, and he just went to the next one. It wasn't like there was a time thing. It was you could sense it wasn't an awkward pause, but you could kind of sense that there would be no enthusiasm from that, and I thought that was loud. That was a loud silence.
Yeah.
Deafening.
So the panel goes on, and it continues into the Q&A section. Now this is a much more intense reaction to what's been happening.
Sure.
Because nobody really asked any questions about gang war.
Yeah.
The first two questions, Zach.
Oh, they're about Baja Blast, right?
Oh no, they're about Ben Reilly. Oh, I know.
Yeah. Ben Reilly, and these and I've seen so many misbegotten Q&As. There really are, however small the percentage may be, awkward fans who don't know how to speak to people and don't know how to ask questions correctly. This was not that. Very calm, neutrally emotional. Fans saying, listen, Ben was a villain in the Clone Conspiracy, and then Peter David did a series where he kind of became an anti-hero, then more heroic in the crossovers. Yeah. And then there was Spider-Man Beyond, which, okay, we're kind of getting back to where he was, and now he's a villain again. Why did you do that? Mm-hmm. And there was a big applause. I mean, I hope I'm remembering this right, but I remember that like the crowd was very much, if someone asked a stupid question, they'd probably like, boo, sit down. But the crowd was very much like, yeah, why did you do that? And Zeb Wells and Niccolo kind of, and I think maybe Sobolski kind of like said, we just want, it's what Niccolo said. We want to have been in a place that's not like just another Spider-Man, which is crap because they're the ones who brought him back in the first place. But also
like if you're not like, again, and we talked about this a lot on CSC over the years. Like, if you're not going to bring him back as a hero, like once would have been an interesting story, maybe, of making him a villain. But this is now the third time you've done it. It's like,
well, and if I remember correctly, Don, someone went up to like the Q&A. I guess they took the mic for questions, and they asked about like the archetype that they said Ben Reilly no longer fit, and then cited like Wreck Rap and Spider-Boy as examples.
Yeah, recently created characters, which are kind of like, yeah. Well, that's the thing, because that was the first question. The second question was like, okay, where is? And actually, I'm just remembering now that like someone asked, okay, cool. What about Kane?
Oh, my heart sunk when they said they had plans for him. That's where we're at.
He's been saying that, I think, since that one dude on Twitter, like Zeb Wells, I think, has been saying that he was going to bring Kane in at some point since that one guy interviewed him at that con, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
Real quick. Let's talk about how people like Wreck Rap. I want to talk about Wreck Rap for a bit.
Because, okay, unironically, this dude loves Wreck Rap.
No, I don't. It's a bit I play.
It's a joke. The thing is, like, people are like going gaga, like shitting on this character, and it's a joke that's not going to last past this run. And if it does last past this run, God help us all, I guess.
But apparently, Josh, I think, wrote in his like play-by-play commentary that people actually like applauded for Wreck Rap's return.
Oh, there are people that like Wreck Rap. I mean, that's not made up.
Yeah,
really.
I was really like,
it's a joke. It's funny. Like, I don't know.
They're
I threw that book out the window, not from Wreck Rap, but like King Chasm. I was.
Oh
like,
yeah, where he looks like Devil.
You
like Devil Man.
You rage quit. That was
so. I don't really have an opinion of Wreck Rap. I'm not a fan of the feet, but like like whatever. Like
that's very specific.
It's Doppelganger 2.0. Like whatever.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, that's true.
People seem to like him, but like I think that like there was a real sense of righteous indignation with the Ben Reilly thing, because the whole like, well, Ben has this place now as a villain. Nobody really bought that. Nobody felt convinced or talked into it. It was like, because it was followed up with like, all right, so what are you gonna do? And like, and I will say this, and I don't know how I don't care. I'm gonna say this. I think Zeb Wells really and I'm being serious. Like, this is me. I'm not. I've had years of fandom experience on that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like I know the BS from reality.
Uh-huh.
I don't think Zeb Wells really has an idea of how much people love Ben Reilly. And I'm not saying this because I love Ben Reilly and you love Ben Reilly. All that kind of stuff. I'm saying, like, seriously, this goes back to C2E2, because we were talking to him, Josh and I, and he said, because he had to read a lot of the old stuff that he was writing. Like, he had to read a lot of the old Hobgoblin stuff, and he said, "Yeah, I just, it's crazy to me that Ben Reilly has a fan base, and he's not even trying to be like a dick or anything like that. He just didn't know." Yeah. And this is like the year that Across the Spider-Verse came out. So the plurality of cosplay is every different kind of Spider Sona. Peter B. Parker, Miles Morales, Pav, Hobie, Miguel. Ben Reilly is well among those. There's no shortage of Ben Reilly cosplays. I saw a few Kanes, but like there was a ton, and there's always a ton of Scar Spiders. So I honestly felt that was, I don't want to say willing ignorance, but that was kind of a level of ignorance that I had a hard time swallowing. And so I think that when they're doing this storyline with Ben, and they're hearing people not like it, and they're seeing people come to cons to tell them, this, we feel half done by this. I think Zeb Wells doesn't really care about the character, but at the same time, he knows that like people aren't going to enjoy it if he's going to be some sort of villain who's going to get stabbed in the chest or whatever. So I think that like as this is going on, you can kind of see the wheels turn in his head, that like there's got to be some way to salvage what my broad idea is for him. Like, because that was something that like was just really, it felt like he wasn't prepared for people to like have opinions about it.
Yeah. No,
I'll be honest. Like pivoting in his head, like, oh God, how do I fix this?
with the way that Beyond felt thrown together, it felt like that Wells was leading that charge. And supposedly Wells is Lowe. I said Wells.
Yeah, Lowe has said he's a big Ben Riley fan. I was like, then how did you allow this to happen? He said that during Clone Saga Conspiracy. He was like, "Oh boy, Dan Slott's using Ben Riley." I was like, "Yes, but he betrayed us."
Betrayal. I mean, you guys go back and listen to those Clone Conspiracy episode, because we went into a dissertation level of why we didn't like that. But look, I'm trying not to be overly negative about this run. The Ben Riley stuff pisses me off.
There's nothing wrong with saying it, because like I was thinking about this earlier today, just because I think about Spider-Man, every 24/7. But like, it's not even a case of like you feel bad for him. He's depicted as a villain that Peter feels bad for, but it doesn't invest the reader in sympathizing with him, because he's so unrecognizable. And that to me speaks to Zeb Wells just not giving a damn about, and you're not inclined to like love every character that the fans love. Like, I'm not a gigantic Harley Quinn fan, but that doesn't mean that like when I write Batman, I'm going to like shit all over her character. I do think that there should be some sort of consideration, because what we're dealing with, this is going to lead into the second part of like this infamous Q&A, is that there's a strict delineation of generations going on here, as CB Cebulski himself tried to get at,
right?
That fans of certain eras will stick with that era of the character, in this case Spider-Man, and see that as the way to go forward. Because after the Ben Riley questions, there was the inevitable Mary Jane, Spider-Man, or Peter marriage questions. And again, this wasn't a case of like, why'd you do one more day 15 years ago? This was a case of like, someone said, yo, Nick Spencer, his entire run had Peter and Mary Jane together. They weren't even, they weren't even married, but they were together, and they were together and beyond. And now they're broken up. And it just seems like it wasn't just the whole put them back together. It was like the back and forth, the switching and switching and switching. And also, I should also say that the panel opened up with CB Cebulski just throwing shots at the fandom, and that's not me being a pithy, whiny fanboy. That's him saying, "Hey, did everybody read Iron Man when he married Emma Frost? That means we're not afraid of marriage." And everyone's like, "Shut up." And apparently, he was at a Marvel panel earlier that week where he said, "Hey, did everybody read like Doctor Strange? Is he still married to Clea? I guess we're not afraid of marriage." So he's throwing pot shots at the fandom. So when people ask questions about Peter and Mary Jane, he got hot about it. He said this guy was asking the question, and this is the tweet that I made, but like he was saying stuff like, tell me a love interest of Superman. The guy was like Lois Lane. Tell me another love interest of Superman. The guy was like Lana Lane. Tell me another love interest of Superman. He was like, there was a mermaid, and he was saying. And I don't even know what his point was, but I think he was trying to get the point across that like not everything is set in stone, but he basically landed on telling this man he doesn't know that you are simply attached to the version of Peter Parker that you first started reading when you first when you introduced the character. And then the guy right away said, "I first started reading Spider-Man after one more day," and then there was a pregnant pause, and then CB Cebulski was like, "Well, okay." He's like, "Okay then," and and again, it's just
Do you remember when we were at San Diego in 2011, and somebody was talking to Alonzo about and made a one more day question, and he kind of was like, "You're welcome" at the end of it. Do you remember that? I think it was during when they were talking about Miles and the relaunch of the Ultimates at that panel.
I really don't.
That one always struck me, like, because obviously he was the one that was in. He was in charge of the editorial at the time of Spider-Man specifically. So before he, obviously had been promoted to EIC. And I remember, and so I kind of felt this, like when I was reading your tweet, I went, oh, they're getting tired of hearing it.
Well, I know you guys are about to go over these issues. There's a letter in the letters pages.
Yes.
Saying, going about that. It just basically saying, why can't Peter be married with Mary Jane because other heroes are? I'm sure a lot of you guys get a lot of letters about this. I'm sure you guys get a lot of like fan response about this, but I'm just asking honestly. And the response was concentrated on, oh, not everybody cares about that. Nobody always writes about that. We get letters about other things. And whatever day was 15 years ago, it doesn't really address the question.
Yeah.
And, I thought that this is not us talking about the marriage for the millionth time isn't the point of this discussion. But I will say that I thought that Sobolski in CTU2 actually had a much more honest response. He said that, some Marvel creators don't mind Peter and Mary Jane being married, because the question was that, is there an agenda to keep them apart? Some Marvel creators genuinely don't mind that they're married. Other Marvel creators believe that Spider-Man shouldn't be married, and the ones in charge right now think that he shouldn't be married, and that might change later on. I thought that was completely straight and fair. You can't say that they're lying, because that's evident.
Yeah.
But at this point, it definitely seems that they're getting sick of being constantly asked that. But that doesn't lend itself to looking inward, which is the suggestion. I still don't think that you should try to play a game of gotcha with the fans, because it's almost, even though you're being attached to the character when you first learn of them, there's a truism to that. That's a really simplistic and reductive way to presume that every single person does that. And you can't say that's not the same thing with these writers. I mean, that doesn't mean that they have a vaster view on things. And I think that when the guy said, I started reading after one more day, and Sobolski shut up, it kind of exposed the whole panel as just being removed from the fandom in a way that's not simply the profession and the customers, but there's, what we always knew was a kind of contrasting ideology that I think the Nick Spencer run kind of screwed them over, because that was a run that was clearly intended to do one thing, and then they felt to go right back to the other thing. And so there seems to be division in the house, rather than what had been said before, oh, Marvel hates the fans, which is such a stupid thing to say at the end of the day. But there does seem to be differing opinions that doesn't make a solid foundation for creating this character. If you have examples like the EIC taking really cheap shots at the fandom and kind of getting exposed in a way as to not really thinking things through when the fandom actually expresses their opinions, in real time.
When it's done in an eloquent and non-argumentative way. Twitter. Okay, I don't think Twitter represents all of Spidey fandom.
It does not. No, that's a fact. It does not.
And,
most people in the country actually aren't on Twitter.
Yeah, and so I think that there's this notion where when we talk about the hardcore elements, because you and I we've done this for a very long time. And in that, we've seen the ebbs and flows of how things go and how discourse has changed in the comic community too. It really, I think, to completely dismiss what the fans are trying to tell you what they want. The thing is the fans are going to, the fans of any fandom, whether it's sports fans, whether it's comic fans, whether it's movie fans, there's going to be people that tell you what they are looking for. A lot of times it's good storytelling. And I think that what Spencer did with his run was attempt to try to balance the storytelling, but also try to fix some of the issues that were at the core of what was wrong with Spider-Man.
In our opinion, yeah.
And I always respected the fact that he went back and read every issue that was available to him, and to try to get in the character's head and look at what worked in the past and what he felt like was working in the future. We were very, I had a letter published in ASM where we got called Kindred Spirits. I understood that. So I think that you're right. It shows that disconnect. And I think Wells is doing, I don't think that they expected Spencer to leave when he left. I still don't think that. I think that circumstances beyond their control kind of dictated that. Just because of the discussions I've had with other actual people that were artists at the time. They were dealing with Nick Lowe. They weren't dealing with Nick Spencer. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was very interesting, especially because they were working on, there was a lot of, fill-in artists and stuff like that on ASM too. So that being said, so was that the biggest part of that panel? Was that like what else happened after the one more day question? If you can recall.
There was some stuff, like there was a little boy who asked, "Oh, is Venom or Thanos going to be in the story?" Kids asking cute questions like that.
Yeah.
There was I think someone who did a Spider-Woman podcast. I'm not familiar with her, but she had asked the writer of Spider-Woman about how Jessica's going to be doing. So like the questions became less pointed and kind of critical and kind of more, kind of like kind of what you might imagine from a good faith audience.
Mhm.
I will say though that like, and this is one last point. Before it's Gadoosh, did you guys talk to Josh? Did Josh have an episode about the BGSU conference?
Not yet. We're trying to get all that together. What I was wanting to do was getting you and Josh. You stole my name badge, by the way. Thanks, buddy.
No, I didn't sell. I picked it up because it was lost on the floor.
Oh,
nobody was there to claim it.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I couldn't come. Yeah.
Real quick. I'm not pivoting, I promise. But Tevya in the chat brings up the Ultimate announcements, and
was that at the next big thing?
I was not present for that, but I heard about it after the fact.
Okay.
So I feel like people are kind of jumping the gun with the Ultimate announcement, saying like, "Oh, Peter's going to be married again." The only thing we really have to go off of on that is that we have like a mid-aged Peter and how that'll tie into the story. I don't think that automatically means he's going to be married. And if he is married, I think that his marriage is going to tie in way more than just being set dressing.
Yeah. Again, until we get the book in our hands, just don't go in expecting to see a married Spider-Man. Go in expecting to see a middle-aged Spider-Man. What they've told you, what's happening.
I do think the comparison to Peter B. Parker from the Spider-Verse movies is very deliberate. On which parts I don't know, but I'm certain if we look at Into the Spider-Verse Peter, there's something we can take away from that. But
yeah,
I wouldn't read too much into it on whether or not Peter and MJ will be together like we always wanted, because for all we know, he could be married to St. Gwen.
Thanks, Megan.
I mean, I think that like it's obvious that like the people behind the Spider-Verse movies, their influencing version of Peter Parker is the one where he's married to Mary Jane. I don't think they did that for flavor, because like every version of Peter Parker is like the Chris Pine version, the Peter B version, and that continues into the next one. Like there's not really any representation of Peter Parker. I mean, you don't see Mary Jane with him in every single version, like the Lego or whatever, but like that's there's as Kelly said on the podcast, that's Crossway's podcast, that's their stand-in for Spider-Man.
The important Peters have that constant.
Yeah, and also the canon event being in the wedding and stuff like that. So like I think that like that actually does make a statement. Whether I don't think those filmmakers are making a statement on this conflict, but that does make a statement regardless. And I was going to say and I might mention it in greater detail at a later date, but like my presentation at the pop culture conference was on the Spider-Man fandom, and I posited that like there were so many changes in the 21st century, or even like starting with the 90s with Clone Saga, that I think kind of in a way sort of like began to break the fandom anyway. So
the fracturing of the fandom really began at the Clone Saga, and that was going to be part of my presentation.
I even suggested that like the first thing would have been the marriage. I'm not suggesting that every single thing was equally polarizing, because I mentioned like slingers and stuff and the spider totem, but I'm saying that like there were so many huge changes and huge swings in a short amount of time that I think by the time you get to Miles Morales, there was sort of a fractured psyche in terms of the fandom.
Everybody's brain broke.
And real quick, Tevya, I feel like the Renew Your Vows Mary Jane, the Spinneret Mary Jane, was more just like, oh, here's a Spider-Man we remember from the comics, rather than a deliberate statement.
I also saw a lot of her cosplays.
Oh, yeah. Awesome! That's awesome.
That is cool.
Her comic version, or the Across the Spider-Verse version?
Aren't the Spider-Man? Aren't they the same?
There's very minor costume changes,
Yeah.
but if you pay attention to like their profiles, you can kind of.
It's probably the comic version. But the
Yeah,
concept
black
art
and
for
white.
the character in the movie, there's 2 different versions that have like slight differences to.
Like
It's the
they
same
modified the shoes
scheme.
because I think even Stegman was like, yeah, I didn't like the booties after I came up with them, so thank you for fixing that. Because
I guess at one point she has like domino mask, but the one her mask is like further up her head.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
So I am planning on doing an episode with the BGSU crew, and I want you on there, of course, to talk about your panel further. But you can talk about it here too if you can't make it. It's fine. Duke, man, do we have to spell everything out for you, buddy? I'm just curious.
Booties are shoes.
They're the shoes that Spidey and all the cost. It's part of the costume. So anyway, so here's my. So you did your presentation on the fandom itself. I know that you did that deep dive. Kind of give a bit of the audience what because I know you're going to be heading
Did
out.
you hear about it? Were you told what it was about?
I did hear a little bit. Josh did kind of fill me in a little bit. I heard about some audio that was played during that.
Yeah, I hoped you did. I hoped you would have. Yeah, no, I mean, like it was shorter than the Batman one, but which wasn't by design. But like, yeah, I was basically the long and short of it is that the Spider-Man fandom is not a linear track of fans who just like Spider-Man are all the same. And I illustrate that. I start off with myself because I'm not speaking about this anthropologically. I am myself a Spider-Man fan, not lifelong, but long enough. And from my perspective, I go into how I feel people generally become Spider-Man fans. I compare them to the Batman fans, which is my presentation. Batman was the last 2019 presentation about.
Yeah. Was this supposed to happen in 2020 and then you just finally got
I didn't get any news that it was any earlier than this year. Like
Okay.
It wasn't like, we're doing this, but now it's canceled because of COVID. We just as soon as we heard about it, we signed up. I think it was either like late last year or early this year.
So to set this up, because Bowling Green State University did a whole symposium over 2 days. Was Friday and Saturday. It was and they do this conference, and they did this pop culture conference with Batman in 2019. You, Stella, and Josh, and that
was it. I mean, at least in terms of people that I think we knew already. And Josh's son, man.
Yeah. So the 4 of y'all went, and then did y'all's presentations and stuff like that. Stella couldn't go to this one, correct? But Josh, our other Josh JPEG, Winnipeg, who's also on this show normally, he did a presentation. He closed the presentation, which you can see his presentation over on Crawlspace. They did post it. Our friend Sarah, the newest Patreon subscriber that we talked about at the beginning of the episode, she was there at the conference. Bruce, friend of the show, lives in this Steve Ditko's hometown, and did his own presentation. Josh did his. I was supposed to do a presentation. That's what I was referencing with Don. Seeing the badge falling on the ground because there wasn't anybody to grab it. And then he sent me a picture. He sent us some pictures of it, which was funny. It made me laugh. Thanks, buddy. That made me smile.
It's in my room right now. It's right over there.
Oh, nice.
Friend of the show, Greg, is tuning in, asking if Don had a good time in New York.
No. No. There were some setbacks, but I absolutely had a lot of fun there. Mainly for like kind of meeting and talking with people.
That's good. I'm glad you got some. I'm glad it went positively for you because I think Greg and them are going to try. He grabbed the badge. For those that are audio listeners, he's grabbing the badge, which had my name on it.
My mouse is there.
I don't know if it'll. There it is. There it is. There it is.
Yeah, there we go.
There it is. Zach Joyner, Spideydude Radio Network. That's funny. So that I would have been wearing that badge.
And into the trash it goes.
That's okay.
Oh no.
F in the chat.
F in the chat for the badge. Man, no. What happened for me, just for disclosure, I was trying to be able to go to this wedding this weekend with Gerard and everybody, and that conference, and I had to pick, and so that's kind of what happened. So, fortunately,
So it was up to me to represent the Clone Saga fans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you and Josh was there. I mean, he was there.
I mean, I illustrated my fandom by saying straight up, these are all the Spider-Man podcasts I've been on, and I didn't leave any out.
Oh, thanks, buddy. So
Greg says that next time the whole gang comes up, y'all go to John's on Bleecker Street
for pizza.
Yeah, so I haven't met him, and I've been to New York like 4 times the last 2 years. Where has he been? He still living there?
Yeah, he's still living there. He was gonna go, but he had some family stuff that he had to do that weekend, so he couldn't make it.
Osborne Thirst.
Another
Let's
Bertone,
go.
eggplant. Vinkman's a filthy man.
Well, it's like a 3 tiers deep in joke.
Oh
It is
man.
an in joke. That is an in joke from the COVID era of
Right.
pre-planning of this show.
I see.
Yeah.
Involving Normie Osborne on the beach with a
Yeah,
lemonade.
Normie Osborne, getting his tan with all his tattoos at the time before they got magically wiped away via symbiote.
Edgy.
So, okay, Don, if you want to stay on for the ASM part, you certainly can.
We're not gonna force you.
But we're not going to put you in a hostage situation. You're not.
I'll check it out with the rest of the listeners. I would just say that. I mean, like I'm not gonna like sit here and like vamp about this is the worst Spider-Man I ever read, because it isn't. I like how Zeb Wells writes Peter Parker, like as like in terms of his voice and persona. Like there's plenty of things with the plot and like the machinations and like the Paul stuff and the Kamala stuff, and that's all rightfully easy to put a bullseye on. But like as terms of like the characterization for Peter, this is far more up my alley than like anything like Dan Slott did. Just because I'm much more of the opinion that Peter is far quicker to be an a-hole than he is some sort of like simpering, crybaby.
Oh, I'm in like the 200, like I'm at like 203 in my read through, and it is telling when you're reading the Wolfman Pollard era, like Peter gets righteously angry. I mean, you read issue 2, if you go and read Amazing Spider-Man 200 on Marvel Unlimited, you look at that Spider-Man and you read like the Zeb Wells stuff, there is certain things that I'm like, okay, I see where Wells is pulling from.
Well, one of my favorite in my opinion, under read moments is like the first John Jameson Wolfman story, where Peter is still like he's falling apart because Gwen is dead, and he goes back to school, and he's just like paranoid, and like he can't keep it together, so he tries to leave, and Flash and Mary Jane try to talk to him, and he's like leave me alone. Alone. And then he goes outside and sees like J. Jonah Jameson, blah blah blah, Spider-Man, and he like destroys the newspaper stand and goes to the Daily Bugle basically to kill J. Jonah Jameson. I didn't ask to be Spider-Man, but all right, you want the smoke? Like he just throws his mask on, and like if it weren't for and he even says if it weren't for the Wolfman, I don't know what I would have done. Yeah, and I love that because like you see like he's like just he looks manic. He's like everyone's like even Gwen's taunting me because I couldn't save her. Yeah. And it's just like, he's not somebody who I feel that like that kind of darkness to him, which isn't like his entire character, but every now and then I think that was, I feel that Tom McGuire didn't do that a lot. No. And I think that like, we know that Brevort really saw Spider-Man 2 as a major influence for his manifesto or whatever. And I think that like, when you look at like the major moments of, I mean, even as notorious moments as like Spectacular 226, or 229, I forget the exact issue.
226.
But, he's going to get upset, and seeing him fight Cap in the FF. I mean, it was contrived in Marvel, heroes fighting heroes BS, but I didn't think it was out of character considering the stakes. So like, I mean, I really don't love a lot of what's happening, but I'm also aware that like so much of this is kind of organized in a very particular kind of thing that like it's going to take new editorship for it to change, I think. Meanwhile, I've fallen completely in love with the Spider-Verse movies, and I am saving to get a PS5 and play the new game when it comes out.
Dude,
I don't have anything to worry about with those two other media properties, not whatsoever. So I'm good. I don't need the comics right now.
Like, honestly, I mean, when you think about how good we've been eating outside the comics, and then there was a time when Spencer's, like, the first year and a half of Spencer's run, man, we were eating good.
Yeah.
We were eating good. And I'll say this. I went back and for Slot Symposium, and I reread those early Dan Slott issues. And I forgot a lot of how much of the elements were pulled from those first 3 issues before the game and the Mr. Negative saga.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot Devil's Breath was even a thing until I reread it.
Yeah, he's even an advisor on so many of this stuff now. It's kind of wild, but
it's like I've always said, his ideas are fine. It was his execution and his voice for Peter that always felt off.
No, it just seems to me. I mean, it just seems because I've never done a podcast on the main books. It just seems to be like a cartoon to me. Like I don't think that Dan Slott's the worst writer, but like it's endemic of an era that I think does. I don't agree with. But but like, again, like you talk about like Eden. I mean, like No Way Home was like a religious experience for me.
No Way Home was it was so good.
That was our pilgrimage to the Mecca.
Like that was Spider-Man, and I'm saying like Tom Holland, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't just like the other ones are there. It's like he really got into that role, and I'm seeing stuff like even some lines. I Across Spider-Verse is fighting me my favorite Spider-Man movie. I know this is such a tangent. I'm sorry, audience, but like some of the dialogue just feels so right to the characters. Like when Miguel is getting everybody to go after Miles, and like Peter says, "Well, I gotta put May." He's like, "Not you. I've had the right amount of you." I was like, "That is exactly what somebody irritated would say to Spider-Man." That felt completely right. I feel like I'm not in no man's land anymore with this character.
Well, it also feels like something that Miguel would say to Peter if he was dealing with Peter for an extended period of time.
It's like when he shows up, he's like Peter, like he just has this relationship with him already.
Yeah, this antagonistic, where. You got the straight man versus the ultra serious guy.
To jump in real quick, I've got Tevia talking in the chat about how the Spider-Verse comics are train wrecks, and I think that opens kind of an interesting Pandora's box of discussion on how adaptations have a lot of benefit of hindsight, where like you can kind of pick and choose what you want to put in, and you can put in everything. But you have the benefit of, that hindsight of knowing what worked and what didn't. So you can like know what to make fun of or like what to poke at or what to take seriously. And I feel like that's not really being thought of in the comments. I just kind of wanted to point that out.
No, that's a good point. I've really not even read the Spider-Verse books. Like when Dan Slott was doing that story, I didn't really read. I read some stuff here or there, like what they did with Mayday and other stuff. But I didn't read Edge of Spider-Verse. I don't know to what extent they're different. I just because it's not Miles' story, and Miles' story is it actually works far better for Miles' story because so much of the theme of Miles Morales involves itself in there being more than one Spider-Person. Yeah. And with the second film, it just really digs itself deep in that. Whereas in the comics, and again, I'm not read it, so I can't speak perfectly about it. But it's just it's just other crazy ideas, and it's not bad. But I mean, I would just love one issue for Peter to kind of like sit down in like the corner of his room and like actually think about. I can't believe that like there are millions of versions of me out there. Like what does this say about me? Like that. Just a moment of that, like a JMS kind of moment. Would really go a long way rather than like some sort of like G.I. Joe. Well, we're doing this now kind of thing.
Well, and Greg also kind of pointed out that bye Zach. I guess this is my show now. Who here likes Transform? Don, you like Transformers, right?
Yeah, whatever.
No. But Greg also kind of emphasized my point that like Mr. Negative in the comics versus the games, you can kind of pick and choose alongside just making up whatever you want. An entirely new characterization for Mr. Negative. And then,
adaptations hindsight, he says he thinks that Weisman said that on every episode of Spec Radio too.
Yeah.
No. Now, okay, so Donovan, where can everybody find you? If you'll DM me the links to those articles you mentioned, I will put them in the description down below, so that way people can go read them.
Sure.
And they will be on the main post on the front page when we post the audio edition. So you will be properly sourced.
Actually, I actually had a Spider-Man related article on Poppers. That's the last thing that's published there.
Oh, nice.
So I'll send you that, and I'll send you the San Diego one.
Okay.
But,
so, yeah, tell people more about where they can find you on social media and stuff like that. And
you can find me on. I've since regulated my name, so but DonoDMG1 is my Twitter X handle. The podcast I do, and matter of fact, I've been so busy traveling that I've not done it in a month. But the podcast my main podcast show right now is Questions We Don't Have Answers. On QNewAnswers.com, I co-host it with Harrison Shute. It's very aggressively leftist political podcast, but it's social political. We talk a lot about the media. We talk a lot about our personal interests. I'm a comics guy. He's a sci-fi guy. So we have a lot of examples from those different disciplines into like how they reflect in the real world. And we have a lot of fun doing that for the last several years. I write for DC, DC.com. I still review the monthly Nightwing title on the BatmanUniverse.net. I've had work published, as you'll see, I've had work published on Popverse. And you can just find me on the interwebs and just trying as hard as hell, trying as hard as I possibly can to get my next tweet to go viral again.
Well, yeah, if you have not followed him on Twitter, he's a good time. We had some fun banter today with the new.
Yeah, I was at work and I was like, "Ooh, that's a Bagley, that's a Lylan. What's the third phase?"
Yeah, it's either a Sal or like that era of like Web of Scarlet Spider.
Did you see the Spider-Man No Way Home art book? Because they had, when they were coming up with the final design for Holland's suit, they had different masks, and they specifically patterned the mask eye shapes after. It was Tom McFarlane. It was also Eric Larson, which I thought was particularly true, because when people think of Eric Larson, I don't really think of how he designed the eyes, but I thought that was really, really cool. And maybe one or two others.
Interesting.
I thought that was really dope.
Yeah, man. Listen, this is always fun. We got to have you on again. I've always enjoyed podcasting with you, and I'm glad that we were able to make it work. And this was a lot of fun. And it was cool to get a firsthand account about NYCC. And I know Greg and Jen and such are trying to go back next year. So, and there may be some Gargoyle stuff related. So who knows? We'll see what happens.
There's a lot of Gargoyles news that I'm aware of.
Yeah, there's a lot of Gargoyles news. We were sitting. We kind of got confirmation a little bit before. It got double confirmed after the initial article dropped recently. So,
is Weisman involved at all?
I don't think so. At least that I know of. I don't think Greg's involved, but that could be subject to change. Who knows? But I think the only people that are involved are the people that were announced, at least right now. So we'll see. But they will talk about it definitely on Voices from the Eyrie. I think they're doing their news segment this week. So whenever that part of the episode drops, be sure to go check it out on your favorite podcasting app. So,
all right, Adam, Halo 3 Rat, Zach, you guys have a good time reviewing, and I'll see you guys later.
Thanks, man.
All right, thanks, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
Have a good one, Don.
See you, Don. And then there were 3. All right.
Anyways, let's talk about the issues that are going to be.
An hour and 4 minutes. Mark it on the clock.
Yeah, hour and 4 minutes. Here we. I'm glad.
The review starts now.
We're gonna clip this for the YouTube page. All right, so now that Dawn is not that Dawn was a hindrance to us reviewing, but there was a lot of great stuff there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Let us know in the comments.
Now that Dawn has jumped out and doesn't want to suffer anymore.
All right. Halo 3 Rhett, do you want to do a quick recap of these 2 issues?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Okay, so ASM 34, written by Zeb Wells, art by Pat Gleason, colors by Marcio Menez. Oh, Jesus Christ! I'm not talking about that letter.
There is
You
so
guys can
much-
do that. You guys can do that all you want. I do not give a single iota of a shit. So you guys can talk about that. So the issue begins at Harlem Hospital, where Randy's trying to
What are you talking about? The letters page or the
letters page.
Oh yeah, okay.
Well, also the main book, but I'm doing it for you, Zach.
Thanks, buddy. Has some great covers. Don't call me Brad.
JR actually did some pretty good covers. But
And the
book
artwork is pretty. Gleason's artwork is pretty.
yeah, I know. Can I talk about the book now?
Okay, all right, buddy.
Okay, so at Harlem Hospital, Randy's trying to reconnect to Janice, and they go, "Oh no, someone turned off the ventilator. Tombstone's got COVID." And Randy looks outside to see a Green Goblin-shaped web mass swinging off into the distance. And after the credits page, we cut to Mary Jane and Paul, everyone's favorite character, as Storm and Norman runs in to tell them, "You guys need to get the hell out of here." Peter decided to be petty today. Norman sits in the dark as Craven sits in the dark until Peter shows up behind Norman and beats the ever-loving crap out of him. Craven decides, you know what, I'm not going to kill myself. The lightning goes away as he begins kicking his way out of the grave. Peter beats the absolute crap out of Norman, just cackling about killing, I guess, MJ and Paul. And we cut to Gabi Mommy, who's sitting in the ruins of her mansion thing. Is this Craven's mansion?
I think so.
Okay, she's sitting in the ruins of Craven's mansion, and in the Holland Tunnel, MJ and Paul are driving until we see Peter flying with the bug aliens from Shadow the Hedgehog and blowing the absolute shit out of everything in his path. He's using the bug bombs that Norman made him that have never been used before for some reason to cover everyone in mechanical spiders.
They were used, but they haven't been used in a long time.
It's like the Vulture story, right? Like the first issue they were
probably.
Yeah.
But anyways, Peter, I guess, gets knocked out, and at the same time, Craven manages to get out of his grave, and Queen Goblin and Norman have come to them both, saying, "This is not your destiny, and you're going to help me put it right." You want to just do the next issue, and then we'll just do all of the commentary together?
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay. Issue 35, same creative team of Wells, Marcio Menez, Gleason, and Eric Arciniega on colors. Norman is in his lab turning Craven's gun into Sin Spear 3.0. As in the Red Hook, Hammerhead is leading a gang war and saying that they're going to tell Crime Master that Diamondback did it, and then tell Mr. Negative's goons that it was Black Mariah, and everyone's going to be fighting each other while Hammerhead picks up the pieces. In the Holland Tunnel, Incel Peter is internally monologuing about how he hates everybody and beats the crap out of Gabi Mommy with a piece of the guardrail, until MJ pulls out her Omnitrix and says, "Peter's not going to hurt me. I'm a big girl." Gabi Mommy tries to kill Peter, while MJ says, "No, Peter might be an incel, but he's my incel. You're not killing him today."
Oh, God.
Peter tries to pull a Gwen Stacy on Paul, and Paul even goes, "You do what you got to do," and Peter just drops him. Works for me.
He's very chill about the whole thing.
Yeah. MJ saves him with her Omnitrix powers as Craven ambushes Peter to start beating the crap out of each other. Peter almost wins, and then Craven manages to trap him just long enough for Norman to shank him with Sin Spear 3.0. As MJ, I guess, holds Peter in her arms as Paul has just, I guess, vanished. He served his plot purpose, and now he goes back to his little box.
Mary Jane saved her. saved him.
No, I know she saved him, but he's gone now. Like,
Oh.
he's just gone until the plot demands he be used again.
Oh, yeah.
Norman looks off into the distance and sees Gabi Mommy on her glider before she flies away, kind of realizing how long has she been smiling. Days later, Peter is watching Randy freak out on the news, saying, we need to do something. Civil War 3. Let's go, people. Let's register people again. Norman says to get some rest, and Peter says, nah, I'm going to do my own thing, and shoots off into the sunset as Spider-Man.
That's a great page. It's an A+.
It's a great page. If we didn't have a season, image, this would be it. Pepe Larraz.
It's not too late. It's not too late.
It's never too late. As Norman sits in his office, he sees the Green Goblin staring back at him in the desk's reflection. That's a really shiny desk. What the hell did they use to clean that thing? What kind of wood polish did they use on that desk? And Norman sees it and he laughs and realizes, oh shit, the desk shouldn't be this shiny as the issue ends.
With a great panel of freaking by Gleason with the Goblin. And then we get to the letters page, and I'll talk about.
I actually haven't read the letters page, so
I'm going to read the letter.
Okay, let's do it. I'm going to go grab.
Oh
a snack
boy!
real quick.
All right, so the letters page opens with, "Hey there, webheads. I mean, I'm glad Peter got free of those sins, but this can't be a good sign, can it? Oh man, it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine, right? Anyway, thanks to Patrick Gleason for joining us for another incredible arc of ASM. Pat is one of the best ever to draw this book, and we can't wait until he comes back. Anyway, let's get to your letters. Dear Spider-Man team, I don't want to insult or come at anybody on the team. I know a lot of emails are probably very hateful, insulting, or threatening, and I really want to convey that I'm trying to write this in the most respectful and civil way possible. This is writing from each and every single person on the team that I enjoy and love. With that said, did I say? There is writing from each and every single person on the team that I enjoy and love. With that said, I'm sure the entire team receives an absurd amount of hate mail about One More Day. I'm part of the vast majority of people who hate that entire storyline. I'm sure it was written with love for the character, and I do not think in any way that I could have, quote, that do in any way think that I could, quote, write it better or anything, as it isn't my job, it's yours. With that said, I'm just genuinely curious as to why the Peter Parker of Earth 616 can't just develop. Why shouldn't he be allowed to be married? Have a kid? Bruce Wayne has a ton of kids if you count all the Robins. If you don't, then he has Damian Wayne. Clark Kent has John Kent and Lois Lane. Characters having their families doesn't make them unlikable or change the status quo enough to hurt them. We like them being happy. I know Peter being married and having a kid shakes up the status quo. But that does not have to be a bad thing. It does not feel like Peter's developing in any way. What would have been Aunt May's death during One More Day was a large, dramatic, and fitting repercussion from Peter revealing his identity. And it could have stayed that way for Peter to realize how heavy his actions influence his loved ones. I don't think that necessarily that me sending this is going to even change anything. I feel like you probably get tens of thousands of letters a month complaining about this exact thing. So I'm wondering, if the Spidey team knows that a vast majority of fans dislike how things went down, then why is it that's still how things went down? Why hasn't it been retconned or something? I know sales are still good, but maybe sales would be even better if Spidey fans got what they've been mailing to you that they've wanted for years. I notice how sarcastic I sound, but I'm not really trying to insult anybody. I just really cannot possibly understand the logic behind any of it. And I'd like to understand. Hoping the entire team stays healthy and well. A Spidey fan. Thanks for writing us, Spidey fan, and I truly appreciate your civil and respectful tone. Going to respond to a few things here. We get fan mail, but we certainly don't get a lot of fan mail about One More Day. That came out 15 years ago. From Lowe's point of view, you're overstating the vast majority thing. Most months, they don't get any letters about One More Day. Then they do a story with Peter and MJ, and we sometimes get a dozen emails from fans who wanted them married, like you. We get more letters from people talking about other things altogether. We don't get a tens of thousands of letters a month about anything, to be honest, as most readers just read the book and feel however they feel about it. You're passionate, which he totally respects and appreciates, but he's also making a lot of, feels like the guy was making a lot of assumptions about a large fan base and retailer community. Sorry to say, those assumptions aren't borne out by their metrics. Again, he respects the opinion and appreciates the fan writing in. So that was what Nick Lowe wrote. And literally, Neil gets back on right as I finished reading the letter.
Great timing.
Well done, buddy. So here's my thing about it. And we've talked about this obviously earlier in the episode. But as long as somebody like Tom Brevoort is in charge of the Spider office, who is ultimately Nick Lowe's boss, Brevoort was an architect of the One More Day storyline. He was an architect of Brand New Day. Obviously, he's been promoted since. He was somebody that worked directly with Dan Slott during Dan Slott's run. And like Don said, until there is a change at the editorial level, or CB Cebulski makes a decision that is antithetical to the things he was doing at this most recent convention, nothing's going to change, guys. And again, if you're basing everything off of what Spider-Man Twitter says, then you think that this is the worst thing ever. Guys, this is not. I am old enough to remember when Peter was on the fucking street, homeless,
and Randy had to
losing
pick
his
him up.
costume.
Peter had to get picked up by Randy, become roommates.
Like,
after MJ got bombed out of the sky.
After MJ got bombed out of a plane. Like, guys, it's been worse. There are parts of of the Brand New Day era that I could say are worse than this. I understand the whole Paul thing. Paul is not a compelling enough character because
I think Paul is funny. I think Paul is funny, like just in how much rage he inspires.
Yeah.
Needlessly, like as a plot device, I understand the frustration around him. Like he's obviously just meant to be like a physical obstacle for Peter and MJ to get back together. But the disproportionate amount of rage that he generates is really funny. I think that's great. It's in the same vein of like it's Mackie Byrne.
The Mackie Byrne during the Mackie Byrne era on Spider-Man, before JMS became the writer. That's when Peter Parker became homeless.
But like Rec Rap generates like this obscene amount of seething and anger for what's just a goofy Battletoads knockoff.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, there are people dying right now in a literal conflict halfway across the world.
That's where your anger should go.
Like there was thousands of people that were killed 3 weeks ago in a terrorist attack. Like there are bigger things going on in the world than Spider-Man comics. And guys, I love Spidey. I do. I love talking about Spidey. But there are times where I get frustrated with the fandom. There are people I've muted on Twitter because I get tired of going on there and seeing the same shit yelling into the ether every single day, guys. You can choose to you can do what Neil has done, except when I force him to come back on the show. You can not read the book. You can do what Don kind of suggested, which is there is a brand new game that is dropping this Friday.
Also, Marvel Unlimited exists, and I
Marvel
cannot
Unlimited.
I cannot tell you how much shit there is on Marvel Unlimited. You can go read the Mackie Byrne reboot. You can go see Peter become homeless. You can educate yourself on things that happened.
Yeah, your reminder that Spider-Man Twitter, my reminder that Spider-Man Twitter called Greg Bishansky, host of Spectacular Radio, the show all about the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series.
That had Greg Weisman on more than once.
They had Greg Weisman on 27 times, not just once, 27 times, or 26 times.
Okay,
So,
Chef, we're getting into some moral debate here, but I took a civics class in college, so I know what I'm talking about here.
oh Jesus.
Culpability is not the same thing as direct responsibility. You can argue that Paul is responsible for killing the entire world by helping Raven get the magic math figured out. But once he realized what his dad was doing, he did feel guilt and remorse for helping his dad cause the end of the world.
And he actively did help Peter, stop.
He got Peter home for one thing. If he was a villain, he could have tracked Peter there. But
exactly.
Also, Paul's been nothing but relatively decent. Like he might come off as a little crusty, but he's all things considered a pretty nice person. He's not likable. I don't like him as a character, but he's not done anything. Okay, well then, if you think Paul's a villain, you're just ignoring. You're making a dead-end argument.
Well, it becomes. You're so set in your belief that he's a villain that you're not willing to listen to, which is a bad faith argument, Tevye.
Well, also you're just saying I don't care. If you're not here to get your mind changed, you're here to just say I don't care.
And if you're if you're looking for somebody to sit there and be a part of the echo chamber, great. There are other podcasts out there.
Now,
but
and like I said, I'm not a fan of this run by any stretch. I am actively trying to escape this goddamn show.
Except for being for helping produce in the background.
Yeah, but I'm not willing to just make shit up just so I can get upset at it. If I wanted to do that, I could just write the worst fanfic ever. I wouldn't even have to talk about Paul. I could just make something awful. I wouldn't.
And listen, as somebody has been doing this literally for
25 years,
5 years. I mean, we've been doing this for, we've been doing this. Look, I've been doing podcasting since 2006, guys. I have an entire era where I was on Crawl Space for the majority of those years. And again, there have been worse runs and worse storylines than this. And I think that what we've tried to do here is try to be as balanced and nuanced about what's going on in the books, because it's very easy. And I literally said, and Greg, you can back me up in the comments here. I literally said it can be real easy to go into the negativity and just lean into the negativity and do it to get clicks and do it to get more freaking and become outrage porn. And
there are entire YouTube channels dedicated to just making things up that didn't happen so you can get outrage clicks. I unfortunately am aware of the outrage, the socio-political outrage in industrial complex on YouTube.
Okay, and that's something that we actively are trying to avoid. We're trying to grow this channel in a much different way. And if you want to be out, if you want to participate in the outrage, great, man. There are things that I hate right now in this world, but I have to learn to let it go. Because here's the thing: as long as I'm drawing breath, I'm going to be reading Spider-Man. As long as I'm drawing breath, there will be a show. And it may end up being me talking to the air, talking to the ether.
And like I said, listen, if you don't want to like ASM, if that's your prerogative, I can't stop you. But I just think that if we're getting mad for the sake of getting mad, we're not making genuine progress in terms of discourse.
And your Astros won.
Yeah, let's fucking go. Woo! I'm using my F-bomb on that.
Literally, okay, and to preface, because Greg's talking in the comments, we literally had a conversation 2 nights ago when this stuff with Gargoyles dropped, which you'll hear about again on Voices from the Eyrie.
A Gargoyles podcast.
A Gargoyles podcast. You're a part of the Spideydude Radio Network. It can be real easy to lean into the negativity, but guess what? It's an opportunity, guys. There's going to be hopefully a lot more people coming to this channel, coming to the website, clicking on and downloading that show.
Oh yeah, the guy who did Thor is making a Gargoyle show.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's the same guy. It's not. It's
Kenneth
not.
Branagh, right?
No, it's different too.
Oh, okay.
That was fake news.
Okay, real quick, Tevye, Ultimate Spider-Man, good. We're getting somewhere. Okay, I'm actually really looking forward to Ultimate. I'm going to be picking that up. I feel like we're drawing a lot of conclusions out of thin air. Actually, that's also talking about the Bendis story, which is really problematic. We're not going to get into that though.
And even Bendis has admitted to that later on. I mean, he was making fun of it during the story, but like later on, he's talked about how there are certain elements of that story that are very, very problematic.
But like, if you're looking at like, there's that one. What's that one issue of Ultimate Spider-Man where Bendis beats the crap out of Nick Lowe, which people take that as like, oh, Nick, and everyone hated Nick Lowe. No, they didn't. It's it's a gag. That's like saying that like
it's like me being made fun of for liking the Clone Saga on freaking Crawl Space and then everybody making flower jokes at my expense.
Yeah, okay. Matt Bird makes a really good point that Paul isn't a villain. He is a plot device. He is literally an obstacle for Peter and Mary Jane to overcome. Maybe not in the way that we see it or we want it to be, but overall, he is meant to be a plot impediment from what we want. Now, I don't think Paul needs to exist. I like I've said a dozen times on this show before, I think that Paul is unnecessary and pointless as a character. He's sort of a manifestation of editorial not wanting Peter and MJ together. But that doesn't mean I'm going to make it my life's mission to talk about how much I hate Paul and how much of a cuck Peter is. Apparently, that's a thing that people are saying.
Right.
And Greg makes a good point. Paul is just Carly Cooper, but on the opposite gender.
Where is she now? Well, she was in Nick Spencer's run,
and then she vanished.
Yeah,
and I actually liked her in Nick Spencer's run.
Yeah, that was a good use of
again
her.
Because here is the absolute universal truth, and we're seeing this with of all fucking people, because we're going full F-bombs right now. Spider-Side. They brought Spider-Side back.
Ugh, sorry.
There is no such thing as a bad character.
Just bad writers.
There is such thing as bad writing. Because Spider-Side was written by guys whose work I genuinely enjoy. But guess what? Sometimes they need a second crack at it. That's what happened with DeMatteis and Spider-Side. Now, I am not really looking forward to Ahmed's spine-tingling Spider-Man because I don't trust Ahmed. Not going to lie. I haven't liked most of the stuff he's written. So, I will still read it. I will talk about it on a future episode of this very show.
Real quick, Tevye is asking what happened to Anna Maria.
She was in
Superior. She was in Superior. Otto made her feel bad, I guess. Otto left. And then she showed up in ASM 900 simping for Dr. Octopus for some reason, even though he's ruined her life times.
Yeah, that was weird.
Alpha actually showed up in She-Hulk recently. It was like a background. It was like a background gag, but ultimately there are variables that aren't just character can be redeemed. It is how much potential the writers see in that character. We'll talk about Magneto on Books of X coming soon. I kind of want to get DeMatteis on the show so we can talk about his Magneto book.
I will. I will send an email. But if we do that, we'll make it. We should probably make it available on.
Yeah, it'll be that. We're getting off track here, but there are multiple variables to a character being redeemed, including how much the writers want to engage with that character. Like I said, Alpha showed up in She-Hulk, but that's mostly just like a background gag. What kind of D-listers do we have that we can just pull out of the salvage heap for a background shot? Oh, and there's Alpha, that shitty character from ASM 692.
A character, I might add, that Dan Slott said was a blatant misfire. And Dan Slott doesn't admit
granted,
to
I will be honest. I feel like Dan Slott saying Alpha was bad is mostly a way to cover his ass from criticism. Like he has like the token bad story, like Mind on Fire, like the ones you can immediately go to to say they're bad.
Boy. Man, I
can't
wait when we get to that. When we get to those issues on Slot Symposium, those are going to be spicy because
that's coming soon, very soon.
Yeah,
we're not that far off. We're not that far off in the reading order, right? We're like 3 episodes away, I think.
Yeah, we're like 3 episodes away. So, that being said,
I do want to talk about the book since we're here to talk about the book.
Yeah, because we really haven't talked about the book itself.
We talked about the fandom more than we have about the book.
All right, Adam, you haven't talked very much. Give us your thoughts on this book.
I guess it's interesting that Spider-Man's the villain of the book, and everyone else is the main character trying to stop him. That's kind of new.
That's a good point. I did like the kind of novelty of Norman Osborn must save the world from Spider-Man. I thought that was kind of a neat narrative twist.
I do feel like after that, though, it goes through the motions, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, who saved Kraven? Well, it was Norman. And then, you know, they stop him. They stop Spider-Man from
doing a bad thing.
What was he doing? He was about to kill, well, he's trying to kill Paul, and then he tries to...
He was being a messy queen.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's okay. You know, the art is exciting, and interesting, excellent. The plot is okay. Like an interesting idea that maybe could have been executed better. But
I will say there were some
good enough, I guess, for what it is. Paul is just, you know, nothing. Paul's just a goof. Like, if anything, Paul's just like a joke. Like, Paul's the joke now. Like,
he's got a literal man bun. That's how much of a joke he's
literally Paul was in like 6 panels of this fucking book.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The art is, you know, worthy of praise. And
yes, Greg. DeMatteis is killing it on a Magnesium limited series.
It's an untold tale.
Yeah,
which is DeMatteis' bread and butter right now.
Todd Knock art looks good.
I do think there are some lines in this issue that go really hard, where like Peter just says, "Oh, hey, here's this." He goes like, "I'm gonna hurt you as much as you hurt me." That's incel Peter.
Right.
But then he goes into a really hard line and he goes, "Something I know works from experience," and he dangles Paul off a bridge.
Jesus.
and then Paul goes, "You gotta do what you gotta do," and Peter goes, "Works for me." Big Peter time.
He's very chill about the whole. He's like, I guess he wants to die. I don't know.
Listen, I genuinely like that. That is kind of a bit of a character beat. Does this guy really
want to die?
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, he seemed pretty. I mean, that line. It's like he seems actually. You think about it, it's like, oh, he seems accepting of his death.
Well, I mean, look, I you know, on a certain philosophical level, the guy literally lost the.
He has nothing. Yeah,
he has nothing. He's lost his entire world. The kids that he was trying to raise as his own were taken away from him. Like they were vaporized.
Plot device, fake kids.
Yeah, they were fake kids, but like, you know, it's like they were Wanda Maximoffed.
Yeah.
And
oof,
you know, like from a storytelling perspective, this is a guy that doesn't. What does he have to live for? And especially if he loses Mary Jane, then what?
Right.
You know, like that. There is story that is developing, even though nobody wants to see it. Real quick. There are questions that can be asked.
This is kind of the plot of the issue. Guy got to do what a guy got to do. Mile.
Oh God.
Taken from Batman.
For those that are listening to the audio edition, there is a visual aid that Neil popped up because Neil has power, and I gave it power, and I regret life decisions.
You fool.
You fool.
What else did I want to say? Oh yeah, I guess, and we all I think we all figured that Norman would, you know, sacrifice himself essentially to get his sins back. I wasn't expecting it to be a slow burn thing. which is what the end is implying. That it'll probably culminate, if I had to guess, near the end of the run, or maybe after Gang War or something like that.
Listen,
I think either at the end of next issue or later on in the arc.
I did like actually we got Gang War teases, because I did feel like, oh man, we had the wedding issue, the Janice Randy wedding issue, built up so much momentum toward that, and then just kind of mostly ground to a halt because of this arc. But we got teases at the end of this arc for that coming up, so I was happy with that actually.
Yeah, I did want to point out that actually I forgot what I was. This is why you don't want people with ADHD on your shows.
I also I think
remember
I
that
read
one guy that didn't like us, that I need to select better panelists apparently.
I think there was one thing that I'm pretty sure someone else said about this arc, saying that this could have been a good "what did Peter do" thing.
Peter blows up the Holland Tunnel,
and I kind of
terrorist attack.
I would agree with that. Like this would have been interesting to open the run with, working back towards this.
Yeah.
And
Peter trying to make up for him being
the wanton destruction,
because and I mean there is precedence for this when it comes to the Norman Peter relationship. I mean, Norman wanted to make him his heir at one point, and this is Norman seeing the results with clear-headed and cleared eyes. There is a lot of good things here in terms of storytelling. And I think that once we get past the event, we'll see what happens.
Radiac said that he's been thinking about that too.
That might have been what I was remembering, Radiac.
Yeah. So Neil, what did you think? Or I'm sorry, Adam, do you have any more thoughts? I'm sorry.
Not really. I do really love that that Gleason splash page where he's swinging and putting on the mask. I think that's
really good.
That's beautiful. Our new outro card, I think, as well.
I would strongly suggest that being on our graphics somewhere. That's an A+ page. Anyway,
I'll try and get it in there somewhere. Also, real quick, Adam, I'd like to apologize. I know I cut in a lot.
That's okay.
So.
I mean, grade wise, I don't know. Maybe like
here we'll do grades at the end of the show.
All right.
I'll let Neil give his thoughts, and then we'll go from it.
So, my weird take is that as I think the storyline is a bit predictable. We kind of all saw this coming.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. I kind of enjoyed Edgy Peter, like not as a bit, like Edgy Peter is so comically evil that like it kind of loops back into being stupidly funny.
I liked him taking charge, but it was like,
why can't we have Peter being this efficient and
actually
regularly?
Real quick, one thing I wanted to say too is I almost thought the incel Peter stuff was a little overblown. Like I almost thought the whole issue was going to be like that, but it wasn't really. I guess I thought because everyone was kind of complaining about that.
They do have a problem with taking like the worst parts of their issues and making that the preview.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be like the whole issue, and it was really just that page essentially, or like a 2 pages, page and a half, whatever it was. And I don't know, whatever. It was still kind of like it was on the nose, but
I do like that like MJ was the one who kind of forgave Peter, because that to me says a lot about not just the writing, but like how Wells perceives their relationship. That like MJ can forgive Peter even though he kind of did a terrorism.
He definitely did.
He bombed the tunnel full of people.
Are they okay?
They're as okay as the plot needs them to be.
Yeah. Or it becomes a plot point in Gang War.
Well, I mean, at the end of the issue, Randy's like freaking out on the news about the carnage and destruction. I think that's Randy on the TV at the end.
Yeah.
I think it was supposed to be, if I'm remembering right.
I think so. I think he's wearing the same hoodie from when he was at the hospital. But I did like that there were consequences. It seems like there's going to be consequences. I hope there are. Adam said, Incel Peter was a bit overblown, but I did like him beating the crap out of Norman just like being a comic, like being a overblown comic with edgy humor. He's kind of reminds me of that meme of like the kid that says, "Yeah, my humor is really dark and edgy." Just says racism.
I also like the fact that we're going back to the regular costume too. It looks like.
Yeah, I think.
I hope so. It's in like all the promotional stuff lately. It seems so.
And you know what? I'm gonna be that guy. I kind of liked Gabi Mami, like not just as like, oh, she's hot, but like I kind of enjoy.
You don't like her because you're horny. You like her because she's actually been a compelling character.
She's a woman who challenges me intellectually.
I'm very interested at the response.
Always find the ones that challenge you intellectually.
I'm fascinated kind of by the response to Queen Goblin, because it almost seems to me like people wouldn't like this idea, but people seem to like it. I don't know.
Like I said, I'm sure there's a way for Marvel to have their cake and eat it too, where they separate Kafka and Gabi Mami. I'm certain that'll play out later on. But I do like this idea of her like going like, I see myself in every mirror in Kraven's disgusting ass mansion, and I hate it here. And trying and eventually taking it into her own hands to try and cure her her desperation that she's changed. Like she's so desperate to get rid of her sins that she takes it into her own hands to do something about it, rather than just sitting and hoping that Kraven takes care of it. I think that's actually a pretty cool idea as far as a plot goes. Whether or not we'll get more of that, I don't know, but I do think it's an interesting concept. The hell is that?
Sorry, it's my phone.
I don't really like Norman very much. Like I feel like his dialogue is kind of just stale ooh I'm sorry dialogue. Where it's like, oh,
that's fair.
I'm so glad I got to know you, MJ. Even though they've talked like twice this run. I did like Kraven. That's kind of one I didn't think of.
Kraven's probably like maybe the most interesting character in the arc, thinking about it, honestly.
Yeah, like I really like the idea that like Kraven's like actively celebrating like, holy shit, I didn't kill myself in the box. Right. Yeah. I have surpassed my father's designs. I like that idea. Like I said, I don't think we'll go anywhere with that either, because I feel like this was meant to be like their resolution. But that's what I'm saying, Tevia, is that Clone Kraven has surpassed has I guess beaten suicide. He's beaten the voices in his head that his father couldn't escape. And
essentially it's him too, so it's
he makes the point that the real Kraven is dead, but this is for all intents and purposes meant to be the replacement for Grim Hunt Kraven that was resurrected during Grim Hunt. Just
because you don't like a specific plot point, like I actually don't dislike the Clone Kraven.
Sure.
You know,
my fear, I think I've said this before on the show, my fear is that like you keep calling him a clone and then Marvel's gonna get itchy and be like, well, we got to bring the real one back.
Like I've said before,
the Hunted story was the right resolution for a bad story in Grim Hunt and in the original Resurrection. If you want to keep the integrity of Kraven's Last Hunt, what Spencer did with Hunted is that story.
And I want to point out that like that was the intent, was that Clone Kraven was meant to be kind of the having the cake and eating it, where they can essentially where they can basically have, you know, stock Kraven for, you know, stock Kraven stories of Kraven does a hunt thing, but also let the original Kraven rest in peace and have his resolution. So I like the idea that Wells has gone on that the clone recognizes that he is Kraven, but that he was able to surpass his that he was able to surpass the voices that led him to his mental health spiral that eventually culminated in his suicide.
Yeah.
I do think it's a little weird how quickly MJ forgives Peter. Like, I know she knows like it's not him, but it's like you just watch the guy bomb a tunnel, dude. It's okay to be a little scared of him. But then again, I guess it does show like the resiliency of their relationship. So it can go either way.
You could say too, it's like the culmination of the past. How long has it been? A year of stories so far. It's just like, you know, it could just be like a venting of all of that.
Paul's nowhere to be seen in that issue or in that page sequence, which was weird. I don't know where he went. I guess he just went to his plot device box.
It's like he walked away.
He walked away.
He went to go see the world.
He went back to the bridge and jumped off.
Got dark. I'm going to give my thoughts on this.
He saw MJ forgive Peter, was like, it's Jover, I'm out.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give my thoughts really quick because we're going to be wrapping this stream up pretty quick. So I like the artwork. The artwork is gorgeous. It's moody. It's done extremely well. I thought the colors and the inking is really well done. Gleason, you know, it's like he was born to draw Spidey. He does a fantastic job. That big giant splash page of Peter back in the original costume, I thought was freaking phenomenal. I think the previous issue was great. I really like how he draws Queen Goblin. I think she's really, you know, they're actually doing some.
Where did Bug go, by the way?
Bug died.
Oh,
I think Bug is dead.
He did get. I think he got destroyed, didn't he? Again
by Queen
Maybe
Goblin.
I don't know.
Yeah, he got destroyed at the beginning of the arc. Remember?
No, he didn't. He was on Peter's back when he was bombing the tunnel. He was flying.
I think let's see, where is it? I'm pretty sure.
Unless Queen Goblin like stabbed him in the back with him stabbing in the back like through Bug, right?
Where is this?
Yeah, because in issue 34, he's flying through the tunnel using Bug as like
which again, the visuals like bits where you see like Gleason drawing the Goblin, you know, throughout this arc was really well done. I really thought
that reflection. I looked at it again. It's pretty great.
Okay, so from what I can tell, Bug. So Peter's in the tunnel. He bombs MJ's car. He keeps flying by, and then Queen Goblin hits him. He gets separated from Bug. He gets hit onto the ground, and Bug flies away.
I do have a question though.
Yo.
So according to the circumstances of which the unmasking spell works, once Peter unmasks,
they remember, yeah.
They remember. Does that count in regards to him unmasking in front of Kraven?
I don't think so. I think
because
Kraven already knew.
After the spell?
Didn't Kraven already know?
I don't think Kraven ever knew his identity.
I wonder if Kraven just doesn't care.
Probably doesn't.
But it is. I may write a letter asking for a no prize.
You should do it
because I think that
do that because I think that'll get published.
Real quick, Adam, you did highlight the page of the Goblin staring back at Norman through the pine sol polishing.
The pine sol.
It was old.
That's
English.
A really good page. That's how they got the desk to be so shiny. Was they just put a shit ton of pine sol on it.
I was thinking more Old English, but go on.
That desk is unnaturally shiny. Like, look at it.
Listen, the entire sequence of Norman in his office, the last two pages, is just it's
really good storytelling visually by Gleason.
Yeah.
Again,
the art team is stellar. The art has been good throughout pretty much this entire run. So at this point, this is not a bad arc. To me, this was a B-, B+ arc.
I think this is the best arc of the entire run, to be honest.
It's amongst the best. I think it's definitely up there. And I feel like that now that we got past all this, what did Peter do? these last couple of arcs have been markedly better since the death of Kamala Khan.
Next time, Rec Rap.
And the next issue we get Rec Rap. So, like I say, I mean, we're trying to figure out how we're going to do Gang War. Gang War is going to be kind of a bear for us. So we'll figure that out, and we'll definitely announce it in future installments of the Spideydude experience. So, Neil, what is your grade?
I give it a B.
All right, Neil. Last time I had you give a grade, you gave it a B. So, Adam, your grade.
Yeah, it's B range basically.
Okay,
probably B.
Grade didn't change. It's a B.
I mean, there's not.
Plus for me. I'm going to give it a B plus. The plus is for Gleason.
I don't think there's anything like. I mean, there's nothing really that. I feel like there's nothing that terrible about this stuff necessarily. It's just if anything, it's just kind of going through the motions.
I think to me, like going off of like the announcements, I read at San Diego Comic, or not at San Diego, at New York. Like we had like a vampire arc with McKay and Laura. We got all the Ultimate announcements. To me, it just kind of feels like ASM is kind of just in a rut creatively. Not like
I agree. Yeah.
Not like, oh, it's awful, I'm gonna kill myself because the book isn't good anymore. But more just like there's more interesting stuff out there for me.
Yeah.
I am legitimately looking forward to Gang War because I feel like that the parts that Zeb Wells has gotten right has been the street level stuff with Spider-Man. It's the end of the world, nothing will ever be the same shit that I feel like he's not done well with. But with the street level and the classic villains, he's done well. And I want to see how he does a good old-fashioned Gang War.
Oh, Matt Bird says that Norman Osborn used Goblin Pledge on his desk, and that's why it's shiny.
It's Oz Shine. You know how we had Oscorn and freaking... It's Oz Shine.
I feel like we have to just get away from the earth-shattering, cataclysmic events in Amazing Spider-Man.
And that's part of the issue, is that a lot of the What Did Peter Do stuff was built on the, like, the way you read Spider-Man will never be the same.
Yeah. It feels like they do that too often, even if it's...
Yeah, the Civil War II era was when it was at, like, its absolute worst.
Yeah.
In terms of like nothing will ever be the same.
I get you have to sell the book, but I feel like, that's not how you do it.
So the next 3 issues looks like are going to be...
Well, there's that closure arc because there's that last issue that sets up like the next 24 apparently. Yeah. And then we get into the Rec Rap arc.
Yeah.
For Gang War. So
we get Ed McGuinness in the back next issue, and I think that's kind of like it's like this is the stage setter that now that we've tabled this Sins of Norman Osborn stuff for now we move on. So we will be covering next time on the show issues 36 and 37, 830 and 831 if you're using the legacy numbering. But the next stream here on the channel will be the Slot Symposium. You've got the upload if you will upload the cover, please, so I can throw it up on the screen.
Okay, one sec.
So while we're waiting on Neil to do that, we will have new episodes. Oh, there it is. We're going to be talking about.
We've been sharing this panel like back and forth for like 2 weeks now, and it hasn't even stopped.
And look, guys, the funny thing is we do talk pretty extensively about like that particular page.
I'm not there, by the way. I was sick when they recorded.
Yeah, so Neil couldn't make it, but Adam was there, and he can specify. We did do. It's about a 90-minute episode on the Slot Symposium, which is a Comic Binge collaboration. If you have not checked out Comic Binge, they were doing a live stream tonight about the Immortal Hulk title. So check that out.
It's very good. I've been reading it because Paul was like, "You got to read this." And I was like, "All right,
Immortal
I'll read
Hulk
it."
is a absolute banger of a book.
And it's funny because I'm kind of like perusing the letters pages at the end of those issues, and man, people are writing like essays in those letters pages. I'm like
they're talking about like biblical shit in the letters pages for Immortal Hulk by like the time you get to midway through.
Yeah,
Hulk,
and I'm
Hulk like eats God or something.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
But I was impressed by that because I just think about the letters page in ASM right now and how it's like kind of
half of the letters pages in ASM are either please kill me or die.
Yeah, essentially. And then you have people like in Immortal Hulk, just like they're writing in, they're like, oh man, I really, they have all these questions, they have all these long letters that they're putting a lot of thought into, and it's like, why, it's like that's what intriguing storytelling does to people, I guess.
Yeah. Well, listen, was it McKay that did? Oh, who was writing that?
Ewing.
Ewing. Yeah, man. What a run that is. And honestly, the one shot that Ewing did with Spider-Man and the Hulk was really, really good, which goes to also the fact that revealed the fact that Hulk knew Peter's identity. And
that was because of Mind Swap, wasn't it? Or
no, the implication was he always knew his identity since the Civil War.
Oh,
like he was not affected by the spell, I think was the implication. Could be wrong, but yeah, definitely go check that out over on Comic Binge, youtube.com/thecomicbinge. Of course, you watched this episode of the show. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. If you're listening to us on the audio edition, we're going to wrap this episode up. So, as we get out of here, we always got to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/Spideydude Network, like Adam, Allison, Cindy, Ed, Greg, Janelle, Jessica, Jurgen, Catherine, Kale, Keegar, Laura Howard, Lump Moose, Master Drammond, Phoenician, Scott, Vanessa, and Vicky. Thank you guys for your support. Of course, you can find our Friendly Neighborhood tier patrons. They are up on the screen. Our VIPs, Scott McGraw, Sebastian, Venkman, and Winnipeg Webhead. Thank you guys for your support over on Patreon. If you haven't checked out our other shows, like I mentioned at the top, Clone Saga Chronicles with me, Don, and Josh, and Gerard, and Greg. Great show that started it all here on the network. And then, of course, our spectacular radio show with Greg and myself, talking with Greg Weisman about all 26 episodes of the Disney XD Kids WB series, The Spectacular Spider-Man. Of course, we got Amazing Spider-Man Classic Season 1 had Donovan and Josh and John talking about Spider-Man from the beginning, but then Javi and Jack Trujillo started Season 2 of it on the Spideydude Radio Network. Sabi Cinema Era Podcast is our show all about the Sabi Cinema era of Spider-Man on his seminal run of Spectacular Spider-Man, our pal Sal. And latest episodes dropped not too long ago talking about, I think they're still in the Conway run, I think is where they're at on their look back. Voices from the Eyrie, a Gargoyles podcast, of course. We've talked about it several times over the episode. If you have not checked out that show, go do that right now. And of course, our Slot Symposium episode will be dropping next week if you're watching us live here on YouTube. So thank you guys for your support. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for everything. We will see you next time here on the Spideydude Radio Network.